Prynawn da, croeso I cyfarfod, diolch I chi gyd am dod. Agenda item number 1, apologies for absence. I don't think we have any, Matthew, have we?
No, I haven't received any, Chair.
Okay. Agenda item number 2, declarations of interest. If anybody has any. Okay. And agenda item number 3 is update on recycling figures and future plans to improve the authority's recovery rate. I believe this is being presented by maybe Steve or Paul. If you just want to give a brief introduction, I'm sure members have read the report anyway.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I understand that you've read and digested the contents of the report. The report is obviously on an update of the recycling figures and future plans to improve the authority's recycling rate or recovery rate. We've also put in some comparative figures for schools' recycling rates and the education enforcement processes that we carry out. So I think they are mainly self-explanatory, and obviously we'll take questions you have after. One of the key issues in the report is, if you look at table 1, we were failing our targets before 2015, 2016. We started achieving our recovery targets from 15-16 on, and have continued to do so to date. However, during that period in 17-18 and 18-19, we had a bit of a blip for the both years. We know exactly the reason that we had the blip. And if I can refer you to section, bear with me, I've lost it now. Section 5.12. We've highlighted a few barriers. Yes. Because as you're aware, oh, sorry, I was on some feedback then. But as you're aware, as well as having to increase the amount of recyclables that we collect, extract from wheel bins or find from other sources, HWRCs, etc. The NRW have, over the last few years, put stricter regulations in place that mean that the amount of stuff that we collect going for recycling is strictly monitored, and if it doesn't go to a recycling reprocessor that is agreed by the NRW, then we do get an element of that material rejected. For instance, carpets, we can no longer take carpets for recycling because we used to send them for recycling at horse tracks. That's no longer counted now. It has to go back into carpet manufacture. Well, there's only one company in the UK that manufactures these carpets, and they are based in the north of England. So for the whole of Wales, really, there isn't an outlet for carpets. So this equates to us losing about 1% on this year's recovery rate. We've also been hit by mattresses that we can only recycle or recover about 75% of them now, as opposed to 95 to 100% a year or so ago. And the biggest one of all, really, is, although the figures don't look that dramatic, is the wood recycling. Wood will only be counted for recovery now if it goes to board manufacture. It can go to biomass plants, but where it goes to biomass plants, we'll only be able to count the bottom ash, which is 20% back. So those rates have dropped from 93% to 75, pardon me, which is, just under 20% reduction. But due to the density of wood and the quantities of wood that we collect, this significantly impacts. And the reason I jumped from the table down to section 5.12 is that the blip in the table I referred to earlier is purely down to us not being able to count 100 or 90 odd % recovery of wood during those 2 years. It impacted us at the time, although the table doesn't illustrate, about 6% towards our recovery rate. So should this happen again, obviously we're looking at, for last year, with a provisional figure of 66.95, it could effectively go down to about 60%. We've got some contingencies in place, and hopefully that won't happen. But I just want to draw attention to it because it's us achieving these recovery rates. We're not just trying to extract more recyclables from our municipal waste streams, but we're also being impacted by these strict regulations, and it's a sort of it's a double-edged sword, really. So As you can see, the projects that we got in place currently and the projects that we've listed that we want to do in the near future to help us achieve the targets can be offset by these barriers. So I think that sums up the report. If anybody's got any questions, we're willing to take them.
Lovely, Steve. Thank you very much. Can I just ask before we go on to the questions that when you are speaking, just turn your camera on just so we can see you. It just makes it a little bit easier if you don't mind.
Oh, apologies, Councillor.
No problem. Right, we'll go straight into questions. I think Clive's got his hand up already.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Steve, can I start on page 4, under 3.2, the second dot down there. You've got the amount of residual waste collected measured in kilograms stroke person. How is this worked out if you've got a population in Merthyr of approximately 59,100? So exactly how do you work that out?
Yes, because it's basically dividing the total residual tonnage that we collect for energy from waste or for landfill by the population figure. That will give you the annual figure, and then it's just dividing then to give you the monthly figure.
Is that a bit unfair because there's several thousand, for example, minors, certainly up to the age of 16, but they're included in there. I know that we're all expected to take part in recycling, but if you've got young children there, they don't always put items in the right place. So, it's usually left to adults to ensure that recycling is done correctly.
Yeah, yes, definitely. I take your point. This is legislation, this is guidance, it's our performance indicator, so we have to do it. I'm under the same impression as you that it might be better if we did households maybe or looked at something a little bit different, but we have to do it this way. It's
a point perhaps worth pursuing elsewhere in Welsh Government, because personally I think that figure is unfair as to the way it's worked out. My other questions on page 5, table 3 there, bottom of the page, and that refers to time periods. We got the figures for the 19th of September 20. There's no information down there for the period 19th of March. Surely letters, I know we've got COVID, which has interfered with everything, but surely letters have been going out in the last 6 months. So do you keep a rolling program of that figure? And if you do, is there any reason why it's not in the report?
It is a rolling figure. Yes, definitely. But what I tried to do with the table in the report was try and, because it's comparative figures, try and select as best we could the 2 accounting periods. Obviously, there was a gap in between due to COVID when we didn't carry out these operations, but it was just a case of trying to find the same period for 1920 and 2021.
So in other words, you've got the information there.
Yes,
which you could put in there so that we have an up-to-date figure, I presume, even up until last Friday.
We could go up. Yes, definitely. Yeah, we could go up until last Friday.
I mean, for future reference, Steve, I think that up-to-date information is what we as a scrutiny committee would be after. And on page 6, under 4.7, you refer to September last year, a year ago, an exercise to determine the recovery rate at schools showed the rate across all the schools of 55.62, and this month it showed an increase. Am I right in saying that not all the schools use the local authority for their recycling collection? And if they don't, is that a problem? Because if all the schools are within our ability to collect from there, we've got direct control. Well, we got direct control over the schools anyway. But if they are able to go outside the local authority, as I presume they are, that's a bit more difficult to keep tabs on.
It would be, Councillor, but all schools in the borough, both schools and the school canteens, have residual and recycling collections with ourselves.
But how many of those schools, and it's about 26, how many of those schools are with the local authority?
All of them.
All of them?
All of them, yeah.
Are they able to go outside to an outside contractor if they so wished?
They can do it, yeah. There's no obligation for them to stay with the authority. It's just that they choose to do so.
And how do we charge them? On what basis? Because obviously primary schools, as an example, there are smaller populations of primary schools, and the same thing with secondary. So on what basis do we charge them? How is it worked out?
We charge them on the bin size, the capacity of the bin. Each bin has an associated cost.
Right.
For residual waste, that tends to be twice the amount of recyclable waste, or recyclable, sorry. So yeah, it works out proportional. I take your point that the smaller schools wouldn't produce as much as the larger schools, but then those contracts would be far smaller. For instance, you might have a small primary school that has 1,100 litre bin for residual, 660 litre bin for cardboard, another bin for cans and plastics and so on, where you've got the big comprehensives. Havant Taft springs to mind, where they have about 1,100 bins.
Right. So because it's 100% are with us, I expected to see that figure 100%, and there's no reason why it can't be. So there are schools that maybe are doing everything to recycle, and maybe there's some other schools would clearly are not reaching the expected rate. What have we done to ensure, I mean, education staff that you've got there, have you got a member of staff there that's going to the schools, checking everything and asking the reasons why they're not recycling as much as they should?
We do, and this exercise that we started last September, it's based on loosely the PI of kilograms per person of residual waste generated. So we've applied that process to the schools. So it's kilogram of residual waste per pupil. So we've carried out this exercise to see how much residual waste is being produced at each school. Also, as in the report, how much recyclables are also collected, and the recycling rate. So an exercise has been carried out at each of the schools to determine, as you say, which schools are doing the best, which schools could use some improvement. We haven't quite got around. We haven't got a schools education officer at the moment. We've got a trade waste officer, and this is the work that they've been carrying out lately. But the intention is to take the better performing schools as examples and pass that information on to the lower performing schools so that we can see an improvement in them as well. And one of the main drivers is financial. It's so expensive to have trade residual waste collected now. It makes sense to have the recyclables extracted from there and collected, as they're only paying 50% of the residual charge. So we will use these examples from the better schools when we're able to get into the schools and educate properly, and let's get them all performing to a certain standard.
But through you, Chair, you haven't got the staff available to get onto these schools. I mean, you had an extra member of staff, I note from the report, from May via the funding in the Welsh Government. That individual can't be doing some of the schools as well as doing something else then, can he?
It's the trade waste officer does some work with the schools, and obviously as part of this exercise, the additional person we had was an additional warden. So where we were educating and enforcing on our residual collection rounds, we could only manage to cover 2 of them. This additional person then provided us with the resource to cover the 3rd round that we'd never sort of tackled before. So capacity to go into the schools. wouldn't be there really, and it wouldn't be within their remit to go there alone. Although the wardens in the past would go into schools, they would go in accompanying a recycling officer or a schools education officer. So we're going to appoint a behaviour change officer in April next year that's been funded. So as that programme develops, it won't just be that officer who deals with these issues. It will be with the support of the waste and recycling wardens as well.
But I would have thought 40% more. There's a lot of recycling, etc., that could be coming from our own schools to increase the figure.
Definitely.
But clearly, that's not happening at this stage. Sorry, Chair, on top of page 7, under 5.2, Steve, is there a mistake there? Because you're referring to the first quarter for 21-22, and you say this is an increase on the same period for 2021. Shouldn't it be 2020? Because you're looking at the year previous.
The 41.1 kilograms is for the first quarter of this year, 21-22, and the 35.05 kilograms is for the same period, quarter 1 in 2021. It should have been 2020-21. My apologies, Councillor.
Right, so the one figure we've got, the 41.1 kilo, is for the first quarter this year.
Yes.
That's right, isn't it? For the first quarter this year, and then compare it with the year previous.
Yes, definitely. So something I didn't mention in the summary that I meant to, and you've just reminded me now, raising this is COVID. We didn't really see any detrimental effect due to COVID. We saw a massive increase in the amount of materials we collected, and I know Paul Davis has reported on this in the past. But as you can see from that figure, it's 6 kilograms per person of residual waste extra that we collected this year, mainly through the COVID period. But the amount of residual and the amount of recyclables we collected sort of balanced each other out. So proportionally, our recovery rate more or less stayed the same, if not slightly better.
Right. Chair, I've got 2 or 3 other questions. Is it all right to ask them?
Yes.
Oh, okay. On page 8, under 5.12, you've already referred to it, Steve, about the situation which is altered with collection of carpets, wood recycling, and mattresses. So as a result of that, and you've put the figures in there, but the total of those 3, you've got the carpets will have an impact on the recovery rate, I presume the overall recovery rate of -1%, plus then for the wood recycling and the mattresses. So what is the total figure that we would be down? Because currently we're at a 68% collection rate. Am I right in saying that this is going to be below, with all that, it's affecting the rate at the moment?
It is affecting the rate at the moment. The carpets was easy to work out because we knew from our sort of historical data that we collect about 250 carpets a year. And we know that we need 250 tons of recyclables to make 1%. So the 250 tons that we lost equated to the -1%. Right. It's very difficult to work out with the wood and the mattresses because the amount we collect fluctuates greatly from month to month. We could do a calculation making certain assumptions. As I said, we could go down for wood, the recovery rate of 75% from 93, but it might not necessarily be 75%. It might be 80%. It might be 73%. It's very difficult to work out, but I can certainly have a look at it and see if we can come up with something.
Because it's got to be, at some time, there's got to be taken into account the effect that's going to be, and just staying with carpets at the moment, you talk about this equestrian tracks, I presume is the name of a company. Are you saying there's no other company in the whole of the United Kingdom that would take our old carpets from the recycling sites?
No, no companies apart from the one in the north of England. We've spoken to them and they are proposing a site in South Wales somewhere in the sort of medium term, but obviously that doesn't solve our problem at the moment. But when I state the carpets, the wood and the mattresses, Merthyr aren't alone in this, mind.
Yeah, yeah. So I
These are
understand
issues that cover the whole of Wales,
Yeah, yeah.
really. So,
Yeah.
no, there isn't another company that can take them at the moment.
I mean, clearly, Chair, 250 tonnes of carpet going to residual waste in this day and age, when we going to have to get up to 70% in the year beginning 2024, is a hell of a lot. So somebody somewhere, whether it's probably at either UK government level and Welsh government level, should be looking at this. Because if every authority in Wales, for example, or 22 of us are in this boat, it's going to affect the recycling figure, isn't it?
It will nationally, definitely.
And on the same page, under paragraph 7, because this is very important, Chair, RAP Cymru have identified through a study of benchmarking and waste data, low yields of dry recycling and higher residual waste arising compared to other authorities. So by that, I take it that we ain't doing very well. And when they say dry waste, that's all your cans, bottles, plastics, etc., paper.
Yes.
So they've identified it, and they said that the results of this study of operations will carry out a study during September and report on the outcomes of that exercise. Well, I think for all of us on this good committee, that's extremely important to find out what the score is there, because there must be reasons why we're not doing as well as other local authorities surrounding us, for example.
Definitely. We're not bottom of the league by any means, but RAP have identified that we could do more in extracting dry recyclables, food, and lowering our residual waste collections, so that we can sort of achieve recovery rates as high as the better performing authorities. And obviously, when they come in and do this exercise, they hopefully will identify areas where we can improve and get those higher recovery rates.
And on the top of page 9, you refer to number plate recognition at the recycling sites to help deter trade waste being deposited at the sites. How do we deter trade waste being deposited at the sites at the moment? I understand why number plate recognition would certainly be of advantage to the both sites, but how do we deter trade waste at the moment?
It's very difficult. We managed to deter a significant amount of it, but obviously we can't deter all of it. We have disclaimer forms where if waste is determined to be trade waste from one of the site operatives, then the person bringing that waste in is asked to sign a disclaimer to state that this is household waste. We can follow up with checks to properties and things like that should we wish to do so. The trade waste comes in and it's developed over the years. People find loopholes in our systems, and it's a case of where we used to see a lot of trade waste coming in vans. They know they can't do that anymore because of the permit scheme, so they sort of decant in from vans into the boots of their cars and sort of and things like that, really. So
I know.
The fellas on site are trying their best to identify it where they think they can find it, and we take appropriate action. But we need the number plate recognition now, where you get traders going in, tipping off, abusing the site operatives, and we've got no way of following it up. But at least the number plate recognition gives us that arm to use.
Thank you. So you're going to have to install number plate recognition at an early opportunity, I would have thought, to help everybody.
Definitely, it helps with any sort of issues on the site, and that, as I said, somebody driving off after depositing their trade waste, we can pass that information on or follow that information up and sort of identify the alleged culprit.
I'm nearly there. 7.4. You've got our textile contract. They will be operating a school collection service from September, which I presume you started, called the Ragbag Scheme. Can you give me examples of textiles from school?
Yeah, it's Yes, what they targeting, and they paying quite a high rate per kilogram to the schools for these textiles, is that the quality of curbside textiles collected isn't generally very good because it's out in sort of all elements, you know, maybe for a night or a few days. Bring back textiles are worth more money because they're in an enclosed container. Well, the reason for the higher price for the rag bag scheme textiles is that most of the textiles that come from the schools will be uniforms, or it'll be textiles brought in by parents where children have grown out of them. So because children have grown out of them, the quality is still quite good, as opposed to textiles that have suffered wear and tear or any sort of damage. So
it's mainly old school uniforms, something very similar to that, which can be recycled. Is that right?
School uniforms would form part of it, but it is any of the children's clothes that the parents decide to take in when they've grown out of them, basically.
So what financial benefit do we get from that then?
Well, we would, the schools will, I think the figure that has been discussed is about £400 a tonne, which is significantly more than we get from our textile collections. The benefit won't really be for the authority, it'll be for the individual school.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. And one last one, Chair, 7.6. You've got to change the legislation and trade textiles and weed collections requiring local authorities, private voluntary sectors to collect textiles, small elect. How is, for the ordinary Joe blogs living throughout the county borough, how will that work? If I've got something which clearly I can't put in ordinary recycling or the bin, how do they know what to do with it? Are they going to be given, I don't know, another see-through bag that the collecting staff can see? How will that work for the ordinary person in the street?
But it's not for the it's not for the household. It is just for the traders. We obviously provide this we provide this textile and weed collection for householders at the moment. But this is legislation that's making traders separate the textiles and weed. So it'll just be for our own customers and potentially new customers.
I should have realised it's only trade. So that's going to be implemented from when?
Well, a date hasn't been fixed yet. It's been suggested that it'll be in October this year. We've got letters ready to go out to our customers. Paul and myself have discussed a means of collecting this as well. So we've got systems in place. It's just waiting on Welsh Government to give us a date now, and we'll implement from there.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Clive. We're going to go on to questions then from Councillor Leave Davis, and then it'll be Phil Starr.
Thanks, Chair. I've asked all my questions. The only one maybe it's more of a comment really. Regarding the schools, a number of questions on the schools, and you've answered them. In terms of, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly, in terms of where they are and how they're recycling, is it a table that maybe you could present to schools, and, you know, schools like a challenge and in where they can finish on the table?
There is. There's a league table. I understand that our trade waste officer has already sent. I think this was just about COVID, just before COVID or just after, the table to schools, and they have taken it seriously. And some of the feedback that's come back from those emails, they do take it serious, and they all want to sort of raise themselves up that table if they possibly can.
Great. Just one other question I got. 5.12 wood recycling, board manufacture. Can you just clarify what that means, please?
Yeah. Yes, it's chipboard. Right. So worktops and other chipboard sort of products. It's that. Yeah. Okay.
Well, thanks, Steve. Okay. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Lee. Phil.
Yeah, thanks, Declan. My camera might not turn on, so yeah, it probably has. Yeah, is it on?
It came on for a second, but Phil, if you're having problems with it, don't worry.
Might be on now. Yeah, it's to do with point 5.9, Steve. It's connected with the recycle on the go bins. Just some information with regard to those. Can it be clarified that these bins are actually replacements and not additional?
They're a mixture of both, Councillor. They're mainly replacements. Although we have identified, or our grounds maintenance department have identified a number of locations that would benefit from these bins, and that's basically down to the fact that they are recycle on the go bins. So where there are areas of high footfall, people walk a lot, then we've decided to put a few bins there.
Is there a clear indication of where these strategic locations may be? We appreciate it's going to be areas of high footfall. So can you give us some indication of where these bins may be situated? Or have these locations been determined already?
Yes, the locations have been determined. Although saying we can still be a bit fluid. The majority are set in stone, really, I suppose. We're replacing all the cemetery bins because there's an issue with fly tipping in our cemeteries. So we've decided to locate them at the entrances and take away the cage bins that are there that are just attracting fly tipping. We're also locating them, replacing some bins in the local parks, Cavartha, Thomastown, Treharris, the town centre will be an area where we locate some of them as well. And then you've got areas sort of around the Taff Trail and sort of walkways like that.
Areas around possibly the hospital?
I wouldn't know the full list off the top of my head. I can certainly look into that, but the hospital doesn't spring to mind as one of the locations.
I think if a list is available and if a list is accessible, I think, and the committee would certainly appreciate an indication of where these bins are likely to be situated. Yes,
definitely, I can get that one sent round. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I come in there, Phil? Councillor Davies. There is a list and it can be circulated to the committee.
Thanks, David. That would be really helpful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, can I jump in with that? I agree with the cemetery side of things because I know a couple of us from the Gurness Men's Project have gone up there a few times and emptied them because we've had complaints about pan, which Declan knows himself, he's done it himself, where you had to bag up a lot of stuff in there because the bins are just overflowing. Not the council's fault, not the workers' fault, obviously, because people just go up there and dump black bags in them. And I seen one half full of tiles one day, do you know what I mean? Because someone had gone up there and half filled it full of tiles. So I agree getting rid of the cage ones will be a lot better.
Lovely. Phil, did you have any more?
No, that's it. Thank you, Declan. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Councillor David Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Most of them have already been asked. Steve, you said about carpets, possibly the organisation from north of England, possibly coming down into Wales. There's no time scale indication for that, is there? Could it possibly happen before 2025?
There was a time scale mentioned, Councillor. I've got a feeling that they're looking around the 23-24 mark.
My apologies, I must have missed that. But if it is, then that is obviously good for us, or should be good for us. You mentioned the textile collections for non-domestic premises. Is this just schools or are other businesses? Is this service available to other businesses?
All businesses. The legislation that's coming in under the Environment Wales Act it puts the onus on all businesses to so separate the cans, plastics, card, paper, textiles, small electrical items. And as you know, we've been collecting those materials from our traders for the last 5 or 6 years, except for textiles and wear. So a lot of authorities will have to put systems in place to collect all the materials. We've only got to add textiles and wear to our list.
Yeah. So, is it only schools that get the increased value of the materials?
Yes, that'll be a separate scheme operated by our existing contractor, Wilcox, whereas we will carry out the collections for the textiles and we from our customers and any other businesses that want to become our customers in relation to this, and that will go back into our existing service containers then, whether it's at the depot with the curbside textiles or at the HWRCs.
Yeah. Two more, if you'll bear with me, and I'll be well impressed if you know the answers to them, Steve. How many court cases are currently ongoing? It is mentioned in the report.
I honestly don't know the exact answer. Although we've got up with the legal section at the moment, there are 5 or 6 cases that are awaiting a court date, and there are 7 cases in the office waiting to go to the legal section.
And as a follow-on to that, how many of those have started since the beginning of 2021?
The keeping up with the Joneses would be from March this year.
Court cases I want about now.
Yeah, the court cases from the Keeping Up with the Joneses campaign would be from March, because with the Keeping Up with the Joneses campaign, we go into an area for 6 weeks, so 3 consecutive collections. With the excess waste procedure, we are constantly in front of the refuse crews, so there could be a 6-month gap between somebody having a letter and having a Section 46 notice and subsequent FPN prosecution. So some of them would be going back months, possibly into the end of last year.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I suppose as my last one, are there any projects in the pipeline to increase recycling, reduce landfill?
Yes, we're waiting on the RAP report, their investigation, and then report and possible recommendations on extracting more recyclables from the wheelie bin and reducing the amount of residual waste in the wheel bin. So that's probably our priority at the moment, because we're fully aware that there is so much tonnage available in the wheel bins for collection that we need to get that out of there. We're continuing to investigate the potential of other minor waste streams, such as polystyrene. We've looked at that not so long ago at collecting that at HWRCs. It was very resource intensive and financially sort of expensive. So we decided at the time not to go with that, but we continue to look at it, whether there are different technologies out there or whatever. The plastic film trial, we're waiting on a report back from RAP on that. See if there's any recommendations on progressing that, if it's deemed viable. And any other sort of projects that we decide from sort of week to week, I suppose.
Yeah, I understand that. Thank you very much, and thank you for the answers.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, David. Clive, you got more questions?
Yeah, yes, please, Chair. Well, this is one I should have asked at the very beginning. You got the tables there about red tags in Section 46. Just from my memory, the wards go round, they open a bin, and they can see items in there that shouldn't be in the black bin. They put a red tag there. Does every one of these residents then immediately have a letter explaining why the red tag is there and what they've got to do? And is that then checked? I don't know, do you leave it, I don't know, a fortnight or how long in between to go to that property to check that they're doing what they should be doing? And if they don't, is that when a Section 46 is issued?
Yes, it's 2 different processes. It is. We've got the Keeping Up with the Joneses campaign, which identifies recyclable items in the wheel bin. That's over a short period of time in each area. We focus on 300 to 350 properties per fortnight. So on the first occasion, yes, there is no red tag process for that. It's just purely a letter sent to the address of the offending household. Right. If on the second occasion, which is a fortnight later, that a recycle was found, then it goes to a Section 46 stage, and then on the next occasion, 2 weeks later, it's a fixed penalty notice. The excess waste policy is slightly different in that there is no start or end. It is a rolling programme. So on the first occasion, a red tag will be put on the wheeler bin if excess waste is identified there. We don't look for recyclables in the bin on that. It is just purely excess waste. So to accompany the red tag, a letter is sent to them. They may not offend over a period of up to 6 months. If they offend within that 6 month period, we will send a Section 46 notice, and another 6 months later, possibly a fixed penalty notice. Our legal department have advised that we don't leave them open longer than 6 months in the interest of fairness. So yes, that's a rolling programme, and it comes back to my point about the resource. We're the third waste and recycling warden because we have 3 refuse vehicles. We now have 1 warden going in front of each of the 3 vehicles. They're keeping up with the Joneses. We have 2 dedicated wardens to that, but they don't follow vehicles. They just have a pre-selected list of streets.
I wouldn't want to be a warden for all the tea in China, frankly. But if they come across a lid is raised, and the only way I would have thought that you'll know that everything in the wheelie bin is what should be there is to actually empty the bin and completely look through it. So, you know, some households would genuinely have a difficulty in putting all their fortnight waste that should be in there. So how do you staff deal with a situation like that? I mean, for example, when they went around the core area in the last few weeks, I was getting calls as to what this was all about. So I had to explain to them the system. So there are people out there who don't understand why somebody's looking at their bins.
Yes, we did when we first started off many years ago employing waste and recycling wardens. We did used to bring bins back to the depot and tip them out onto the depot floor and sort through them. It is such a resource-intensive process.
Yeah, I understand.
It's unmanageable. The wardens can probably do about half a dozen bins a day.
Yeah.
So we stopped that practice. Due to COVID, we don't dig deep into the bins. We've advised the wardens just to open bags that are on the top of the bins and just, you know, don't delve in.
Yeah.
So but unfortunately we have to do it on the roadside as it's the only manageable way of doing it.
Right. Okay. And on page 7 under 5.5, last sentence, this is an exercise on how many households were recycling at least one material on collection day. And the result, 86% of properties visited had placed a food bin or recycling box on both for collection. I mean, I've got a bee in my bonnet and I've had it for a long time. Since the system was introduced, I do not understand when people are being given a food bin, why they ignore that and simply empty food waste into a black bin. And according to those figures there, I take it that there's about 14% of, at least, of properties in Merthyr Tydfil where they still empty the food waste into the black bin. Am I wrong?
It's more than that, Councillor. The exercise, again, monitoring participation is a very resource-intensive exercise. So what we'd asked the wardens to do with these properties was just record whether somebody had a food bin, a dry recycling box, trolley box, or whatever container out. That was marked as they were participating. So in terms, and we didn't record this, but the feedback from the wardens, in terms of food recycling alone, you would be looking at a figure closer to 50-55%, as this figure takes account of somebody might only have a food bin out, they might have a combination of food and dry, or they might just have dry containers out. So it's just an overall summary, really.
I mean, for me, it's in this day and age, it's purely an environmental health issue. And no one should be putting food waste in the black bin. But all of us here, and I would think every councillor knows that this is still happening. So we got people who've got blue food bins empty every week and not putting their food waste in black bins. And I just think this is beyond the pale, frankly. What can we do about it?
Definitely, and this will form part of this wrap visit and
Right.
subsequent report.
Right, because every collection week, for me, there should be a food bin out there. If there's no recycling bin for some reason, fine. But there should be a food bin out there every week because everybody has food waste.
Definitely.
And on page, again, still on page 7, 5.8, you mentioned the reuse shop. And it's excellent to see that 350 tons of items have been sold to local residents. Is there a charge made, a nominal charge, if an item of furniture has been worked on and improved and they sell it? Do they sell it or is it just given to people?
No, it's sold. It's sold at a reasonable rate, and I've looked in the shop myself, and the items are really cheap.
Sure.
It's not restricted to low-income families either.
Right.
So yeah, and the partnership is a profit-sharing partnership where at the end of the year, whatever profit there is will be split 50-50 between Newport Way Savers and Merthyr Council.
So at some time in a future report, I think we should need to see, I know it hasn't long been set up, what financial benefit we get in that back from that. I know there's lots of benefits of that happening, but what financial benefit are we having from that to the local authority?
Definitely, they have to. They provide us with the tonnage data on a quarterly basis, but the financial data will only be provided at the end of the financial year. So we're probably looking at next June, I would assume, to get that information.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Thank you, Clive. Malcolm?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, Steve, can you just clarify something on the keeping up with the Joneses thing for me? You said that when we find someone at fault through that scheme, we don't red tag them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we just send them a letter in the post saying.
Just send them a letter.
So if they've got something inappropriate in their bin and we're not tagging it, do we take the bin or do we leave the bin?
No, we empty the bin. We still empty the bin.
So we still empty it, although they're not compliant and there's something in there that shouldn't be in there. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. But if we red tag a bin as part of the separate scheme, then it doesn't get emptied.
No, it still gets emptied. But because it's excess waste, what tends to happen is the collectors are only asked to empty the bin, not take the excess waste. So what they do is empty the bin, and the excess waste bags are then put back in the residence bin. So quite often that confuses the residents with them thinking that they haven't had a collection, but in effect it is just the excess waste they had gone back in the bin.
Right. Okay. So is it only excess waste that gets people red tagged?
Yes. Yes.
Right. So is that the same for dry recycling as well?
No, there's a different system for dry recycling in that if there's contamination in the recycling containers, there's a tag put on the container explaining why it wasn't collected. There is no follow-up letter then. It's just the tag that informs them that they've done something wrong. And what we'd expect then is them to sort of remove the contaminants, put the contaminants into the appropriate recycling container or into the wheel bin if it's residual waste, and put it out for the next collection in the appropriate manner.
Right. Okay. So that's not a red tag. That's a separate tag. Is that correct?
That's a separate thing. I think the tags for that are white, and they just advisory notes really.
Right. That's great. Thanks for clarifying that because I wasn't clear on that myself. So that's great. Thank you.
Malcolm, is that it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Can I just clarify, Clive, your hand is still up. Is it legacy hand?
Yes, Chair, sorry.
That's okay. Councillor Jeremy Davis.
Yeah, just a quick question, Steve. You say in the excess waste gets chucked in the bins. Well, I know on quite a few occasions around the Gurnas, it haven't been put into bins, it's been left by the side, the bin has been emptied, but the bags have been left by the side with a bit of tape on. And I know this because I've ended up going round when I'm litter picking and putting them into bags myself and having the local litter picker pick them up for me. So they're not always putting them back into the bins. Sometimes they are left on grass and things and just left to the side.
Yes, I agree, Councillor. It's yeah, the process should be that they put them back in the bins. But some do it to the letter. Others, we know, probably don't follow the procedure as they should.
Also, another question as well. It's like I put my bin out the other day, and I went to put something in there. Then I wasn't recycling as I was going to school in the morning. So obviously I put my bin out in the night, and someone had chucked a bag in there, and obviously it was a couple of recyclables in there. So do we ever think of that? That obviously if someone got 2 black bags in there, and you see a carrier bag tied up with a bit of stuff in there, that is a bit of common sense shown that obviously someone could have put that in the bin, because obviously I took it out, took all we redone there. But obviously if some people are working and they go out 8 o'clock in the morning, don't come back till 5 o'clock or whatever, and the bin has been emptied, then they could be looking at a fine or whatever because someone have chucked a bag in the bin, which does happen, you know yourselves. Because my bin is only ever half full after 2 weeks because I recycle everything. But obviously, if someone chucks a bag in my bin and I don't know about it, then I could be looking at a fine for something I haven't done.
It does happen. We understand that, and every case is investigated individually. The wardens will check the bag. There may be evidence from another property. There may be evidence from that person's property that doesn't justify it being a bag from somewhere else. So, and we do show leniency in these instances where we assess and agree with the householder that the potential for a bag being put in there from somebody else's property is it could have happened. We had one case where somebody complained that a resident from the next street was putting a bag in the bin, and when we investigated it, we found that this was actually the case. So we withdrew the fixed penalty notice. We spoke to the offending resident, and the resident said to us, "Yeah, I do it. What are you going to do about it?"
I can imagine.
And we've checked with the fly tipping team, we've checked with the legal section, and there isn't any real legislation that gives us the powers to say, yes, that is fly tipping, because effectively that person has put it in as a receptacle for waste. So, in answer to your question, it does happen. I can only say that we check cases individually and make the appropriate assessment where we can.
Yeah. No, I know. I understand it's a tricky one, isn't it? It's you damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Jeremy, is that it? Yeah, lovely, thank you. Stephen, just a couple of things. I don't know if you'll be able to clarify this, or maybe Judith. It's just in regards to something that Clive brought up earlier about people going into schools and educating not just the students but the teachers as well. I think that we agreed in full. I had to check this in the meantime while you've been answering questions. I think we've agreed in full council to appoint a behavioural change officer, but that won't come into being until 2022. And I think they take over that role. Is that right?
April 22. Yes.
Yeah, so they'll take over that role. Then also, I know Clive has asked for a report to come back, and you've mentioned that it'd probably be June next year, just in regards to the reuse shop. Can you just give a brief outline of exactly what happens? Is in that what items are sold, approximate costs of the items, the selling price if you know them. How do you get the items? Are they delivered to you? Do you pick them up, or would it be taken from the HWRCs, maybe in Dowlis and Aberfan?
Yes, we work in a partnership, as you know, with Newport Waste Savers. So Newport Waste Savers manage and operate the reuse shop for us. We effectively have very little involvement in that. The materials they get, or the items they get, are directly delivered in by local residents. Twice a week, they fill up a Luton van from the Dowlis HWRC and the Aberfan HWRC from a container that we have asked our site operatives to sort of load with items that they think are fit for reuse. So those go back to the shop to be sold on. Our bulky collections, where the crews deem an item of furniture that could possibly be used for reuse, that is diverted to the reuse shop as well. Costs, the costing, the pricing of these items would be purely down to Newport Way Savers. The items would be a fraction of the cost of buying them new. I wouldn't have examples, to be honest with you, but it's sort of like I know they sell a bag of textiles. They grade the textiles into sizes, and I know a black bag full of textiles is £3. So there's about 30 items in there. So that might give you an idea of how cheap they're sold on, really. And yeah, we get quarterly data returned to us, itemized. So all the items that are sold are listed, grouped into certain categories, and the tonnage recorded as well.
Lovely, thank you, Stephen. Can I just have clarification on the process again? A letter is issued, which is just say a standard letter. There's recyclables in your bin. Then a section 46 is issued, which really is just a formal letter. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's grand. 2 weeks after then, an FPN. Okay, that's grand. Just one other thing then. It's 5.10. It's where a trial commenced in July 21 at the HWRC. I presume to go through all the bags that are collected from street bins, and obviously you're taking out 87% of the stuff that's going through them is recyclable. It sounds a fantastic initiative, to be honest, and you're obviously getting a lot of recyclables from them. I presume it's safe for the guys to do it, you know, because dog poop is put in the bins and maybe as well hypodermic needles.
Yes, we try to sort of limit the risks. Obviously, there is a danger with dog fouling. Dog fouling in the bins, the litter bins containing dog fouling are put into the residual into the residual waste bin. Sorry, the bins that we're sorting through should. I can't say that they wouldn't have dog fouling because we do come across it, but it's limited. So the cleansing operatives who collect the bags, where they know that it's predominantly dog fouling waste that goes in the bins, perhaps in parks, and where they pick up dog bins, that is just sent directly to the residual skip, where we don't handle that. So we give them the correct PPE, that they got gloves. They don't handle the materials. They use tongs to pick out the items from the bags. So yes, we understand it has health issues, but we hopefully we've got the right safe systems of work in place to keep our operatives safe.
Lovely, thank you, Stephen. I think maybe this is something maybe the cabinet member could look at as well. It might be that call for extra dog bins to be, because you are allowed to put dog poop into these street bins, but maybe extra dog bins would reduce the risk even further.
Yeah, as part of the circular economy funding that we use to provide recycling on the go bins, we also purchased 60 dog fouling bins. So they are being placed out into the community as well.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Stephen. Anybody else got any questions? Okay, we're going to go on to comments. Oh, Malcolm, is that a question or a comment?
That's a quick question, thanks, Chair.
Yeah.
Just a quick follow-up from Steve, what you said about you've purchased 60 dog waste bins. Are you going to consult with local councillors and residents about the best places to put these?
It isn't our intention. We've discussed it with our street cleansing department, and they have advised on where they want these dog bins to go. So I can circulate that list if you like with the list of recycle on the go bins. Yeah,
thank you, because I'm sure all councillors get regular requests from residents saying, can we have a dog bin in such and such a place? So it would be handy if we had that list, but perhaps also some consultation in future might be helpful.
Certainly.
Lovely, thank you, Malcolm. Right, we'll go on to comments if anybody's got any. Cabinet Member David Hughes.
Yeah, just to answer Malcolm, I'll be bringing a policy document to full council about dog bins and bins. Our councillors can request a bin where they to be cited, so that all councillors know the criteria. Because let's be honest, there was a lot of people wanting bins, and we getting the same answer all the time. We can't do it, but I will be bringing a report to council so you can see what the criteria is about how to go about getting a bin and where the bin should be cited.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. That'd be really helpful if you could do that.
Lovely, thank you, David. Anybody else got any comments? No, okay. Oh, Clive.
Sorry, but if there's no other comments, are you, Chair, going to deal with the recommendations under 2.2?
I'm still on comments, to be honest, at the moment. Right. I was going to make some myself.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right. Okay, just two quick comments I've got. One's in regard to the benefits. RAPA currently producing a report into the benefits, disbenefits of recycling absorbent hygiene products. I think I've spoken to Judith. They're still waiting for RAP to come back with the report. Somebody's been on the sick there, and Judith has said once the report is ready, she'll bring it straight to the next available scrutiny committee. I think Judith wants to come in here.
I was just going to say exactly that, Chair. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Judith. Okay, we're going to go back. Anybody else got any comments before I go back to the recommendations?
Chair, on that particular aspect, surely that the committee needs to have some idea when that particular report is likely to come before us as a scrutiny committee. At the moment, we got no idea whether it will be in the next meeting or the next 6 months, and you know we're expecting, as a result of the original report, we're expecting a further, more comprehensive report before us.
Yeah, it can come to the next scrutiny committee, which I believe is in November.
Yeah, I think it is. Oh, right. That's very good. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Judith. Right, recommendations 2.1 was that the scrutiny committee discusses and comments on the issues set out in a report. I think we've done that adequately. And 2.2, that a task and finish group be set up to explore recycling in the county borough, to identify how the recycling rate can be increased and how this may impact on fly tipping statistics and offer possible actions and solutions. To be honest, I think this is going to be the last task and finish group that will be done by this committee, or anyone is interested in it. I think really when I've asked for this, I really want this to have an impact on fly tipping. It's an absolute disgrace, to be honest, and it's not just here. I've been going back through figures for local authorities, to be honest, throughout Wales, and everywhere is the same. And I just want to, if you want to come into this committee, fantastic. But I think we should also get a lot of residents involved, whether we put that on Facebook, because they may have solutions that, you know, there may be some off the wall comments on it that might actually work. But I think the more people involved in this, the better. And I think if we can have one impact on lowering fly tipping and through this committee, I think it'd be worthwhile. So I don't know if anyone has got anything else to add.
Are you asking for volunteers, Jay?
No, not yet. I'm just asking if anybody would like to add anything first before I ask for volunteers. No. Right. Who'd like to volunteer? I don't know, Sean, if you'd like to make note of who would like to.
Yes, no problem. I've just typed it in below, so if ever anybody
Sorry,
Yep.
sorry, Sian, I do apologise. Do members want to raise a virtual hand if they'd like to be involved? Okay, I think we've got Councillor Clive Jones, Councillor Jeremy Davis, Councillor Lee Davis, and myself, I think.
And Phil Starr.
And Phil, sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
see your hand. Okay,
Yeah.
lovely. Sian, what I'll do is I'll send out an email to all the members that have indicated they'd like to be involved, and we can start from there if that's okay.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
And is it possible, because we're all busy individuals, to sort of give us a few dates so that we can get agreement, you know, on the dates and times?
Yeah, lovely, Clive, no problem.
Yeah, I
Thanks.
agree with Clive on that.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much, everyone. We're going to go on to agenda item number 4, I think it is. And it's the update on the implementation of the Tyne Rodden Air Quality Action Plan. I'm sure members have read everything. So normally we will get somebody to introduce it, which will be either Lucy Marley, Environmental Health Officer Lucy Marley, or Environmental Health Officer Garen Eldred. But we can go straight on to questions unless there's something in the report that Lucy or Eldred would like to bring up.
Hi everyone. I'm happy to just take questions if you don't require a summary.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Lucy. Has anybody got any questions? Phil, you've got a hand raised. I don't know if it's legacy. I presume it's legacy.
Yeah, so
right,
legacy, Declan, sorry. Yeah.
That's no problem. Right, no, Clive.
Microphone's off.
Clive, you're on mute, I'm afraid.
I'm doing well. That's the first time today. Under 1.2, it refers to the data gathered is anomalous due to the reduction in traffic movement associated with it. Perhaps Lucy can explain the reasoning behind that. Is it because of COVID and the consequent reduction of people driving out there, not going out in their cars? So it wouldn't give a true reading. Are those the reasons?
Yeah, that's exactly it. You know, there was a notable drop off post lockdown in the data. You know, a marked change, you know, which was very different to the previous year. So it is to do with the lack of traffic movement.
And so when have you started this? I mean, because obviously, particularly since, I don't know, July this year, traffic movements have become back to virtual normal. So have you started the data, or are you due to start it, taking the data?
It's constantly ongoing. COVID hasn't interrupted the operation of the monitoring network. The network has been unaffected in that respect. You know, the data has been collected as usual. It's just that the results from that data are different to what we would expect in normal circumstances.
So over how long is the period of time that you'll get a true reflection? Is it over 6 months or longer?
No, we generally look at a year, year on year. So we would be looking from like January to end of December, a calendar year. So
is it your intention to start it next January?
Yeah, it will just carry on. It carries on continually. It doesn't stop. When we submit the report to DEFRA, the report for this year or for 2020 data has just gone to DEFRA. So they will be considering it at the moment. So that data is all for January 1st of 2020 right up to the end of 2020. And so, you know, you're always looking at a year behind. So next year's report will be looking at the data for 2021.
But even next year, because of lockdowns and restrictions, it still won't give an accurate picture, would it?
Well, we would just have to see how things go. You know, if there are any sort of further significant lockdowns, obviously those will impact. You know, if there's any sort of notable reduction in traffic movements, those will impact, just as last year has. So it's just a moving story at the moment. We can only react to what the data says in, you know, off the back of what is actually happening in terms of lockdowns and what impact they have. So it is literally just, you know, previously, prior to the pandemic, we were in the position where obviously the traffic reversal had taken place, and the data for the latter end of the year, or period 6 to 12 after the traffic reversal, showed reductions compared to the same period for the previous year, where the, you know, it was exceeding in Toynrodden. So the early indications were that, oh, you know, great, it looks like it has worked. We want another year of data, but of course then the pandemic came along and interrupted that. So the intention would have been to revoke the quality management area, but obviously because of coronavirus, we're not able to do that at the moment now. So I think we'd be probably looking over the next couple of years now, and like I said, it will depend really whether we have a full year of data that can be relied upon, because what we don't want to be ending up in is in the position where we revoke the thing and then have to redeclare it because exceedances occur, or, you know, levels increase again.
Thank you for that. On a connected issue, but it is different to the one I've just asked. On the particular stretch of roads in Toynrodden, because you can actually, in that particular area, indicate the number of individuals affected, you know, the number of households. As far as you know, has any research been carried out by, for example, Public Health Wales? Because pollution, vehicle pollution, is a major issue in this moment in time. And what I'm getting at, there may well be individuals living there, either young people, all sorts of individuals who have got health issues and wouldn't know that their health issues have either been exacerbated or caused by air pollution. So has any research, as far as you know, been undertaken by Public Health Wales?
I'm not aware of anything specific. No, not to that particular area. That's something I can look into.
But to have a full picture,
yeah,
and then clearly there are many other sites throughout Wales where this research, if it's not done, should be undertaken. Because at the end of the day, the reason we're doing this is to ensure that we reduce the pollution levels and improve people's health.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the data for post-traffic reversal does indicate that it has reduced in that area. It's reduced to below the, you know, the permitted level. What we want is not for it to just be below the permitted level, but more than 10% below that permitted level.
Yeah.
So if that's the case over a, you know, a longer period, that would enable us then to revoke the air quality management area.
Yeah, I mean, if there's somebody there, for example, who was an asthmatic, the high pollution levels that were there, in my opinion, must have at some time affected their health.
Well, you know, I'm not a medical expert, but obviously, you know, those levels are legislated for a reason, and obviously there is bound to be some effect where those levels are exceeded.
But you'll make some inquiries in that respect.
Yes, yes, Councillor, no problem.
Right, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Clive. Before I go on to questions, it'll be Lee Davis first and then Councillor David Jones. I just want to go back and thank Stephen. I forgot this for presenting the last report and answering lots and lots of questions. I don't know if Stephen is still here, but if not, I'll send him an email. Okay, we're going to go on to Councillor Lee Davis.
Thanks, Chair. This question might not be particularly related to this. Is there any thought of reversing the traffic along Cleveland Street, bringing the traffic around like Wheatsheaf Lane? Because like if you're in traffic around that area, you've got to go all the way up to the Pont Morris, come all the way around to come back onto the gyratory onto Avenue de Clichy. So if you reverse the traffic along Cleveland Street, it would reduce the traffic going all up through Pont Morris.
Do you mean you'd have to reverse it back through Pont Morris though?
Yeah, reverse it down Cleveland Street. So instead of coming down the one there in Cleveland, come round the back of the bus station where the bus station formerly was, down Victoria Street, and then you could go back out through Cleveland Street.
We haven't got any. Sorry, we haven't got any plans to do that. I mean, we do have monitoring points around that area. I mean, do you mean it specifically because of a?
So if a taxi was
to go around, or?
So if a taxi picked up on Victoria Street, they would have to go all the way to the top of Pont Morris and then come along past the YMCA all the way around to get back onto Avenue de Clichy. But if they came round and then down through Cleveland Street, they're back on Avenue de Clichy straight away. So the traffic's not all going up. I don't know if that makes sense to others. Maybe something that's worth looking at.
Yeah, I mean, that may be something to put towards, put to highways maybe, you know, I mean, in terms of the air quality, which is what we are concerned with, the levels are not exceeded at the moment. So
yeah,
if it's something to do with purely sort of traffic flow or, you know, nuisance aspect, if you're driving a vehicle,
yeah, my question was regarding pollution and traffic flow, because obviously, you know, I drove at Pont Morris and then, you know, there's a lot of traffic being held up there sometimes now.
Yeah.
So there's less pollution. So
that was something that was anticipated, obviously, as a potential issue with the traffic reversal, in that you would have more traffic going up Pont Morris, you know, to get away from the town centre. So there's a couple of monitoring points on Pont Morris High Street, one of which is co-located with an automatic monitor as well. So the point of that was to see whether the traffic reversal resulted in exceedances on Pont Morris, and at the moment there hasn't been any. There's been a slight increase because that was expected, but there haven't been anywhere near, you know, it's not sort of on the verge even, it's been well below the levels. So yes, there is more, you know, congestion maybe, but there. And that is something we're going to continue to monitor, because obviously you've got a narrow, tall buildings and possible canyon effect, and you know, we need more data really to give us a decent picture of what exactly is going on over the longer term.
okay, no problem. I will speak to the cabinet member and maybe explain better what I referred into anyway. Thanks, Lucy. Cheers, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Lee. Councillor David Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Lucy, in the report it says that the nitrogen dioxide has gone down about 13%. Is that correct? 13.5%?
Yeah, I think that's across the board. Which point was that on? No, that's time report. Yeah, that was the two periods that I referred to earlier. 2019 and 2020 data, period 6 to 12. That is the reduction in nitrogen dioxide in the air quality management area.
So do we know the reduction, the vehicle numbers reduction in the same period?
No, traffic counts were done previously. I think they weren't carried out because of the lockdown. I did check with Carwyn whether there had been any more recent traffic counts done, and they hadn't. But I think my understanding is that there will be more traffic counts carried out, but I couldn't tell you when at the moment.
Yeah, I appreciate that. One other thing that needs to be taken into consideration is that the highways access to the streets has recently been reconfigured.
The one-way.
Well, various one-way systems now throughout the area. So perhaps we need to look at from the start of those difference to the highway access as a sort of a new starting point.
I mean, those points can be put in, you know, you can look at the data from those points that, you know, we've got years and years of data going back. It's all recorded. You can look at any point in time you wanted and see and compare, you know, and we were consulted on the one-way changes onto Toynrod and Hill, and we didn't really anticipate any, you know, detrimental effect. We thought maybe if anything it might be a benefit because, you know, it improves traffic flow around that area because you know there's narrow streets which are double parked. So I can look at the data in terms of when those were implemented and see how they compare to previous years, certainly.
Yeah, but also where the monitors are located, are they either, I don't know, are they affected by the new one-way systems?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head right now. I can look at the data and, you know, see what it says. But I don't believe so at the moment. I don't believe it's something that's come up as an issue.
Honestly, I think it's an unanswerable question in that we've got nothing to compare it with previously.
Well,
because of the change in traffic directions. Is the monitor in the right place? I suppose that's the question I'm asking.
On Toynrod and Hill, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since the
they haven't changed locations. They are still as they were. The only one which has changed was the automatic monitor was previously on Toynrod and Hill. That is now being moved on to Pontmorlais, co-located with the two, to see the correlation between the two, just to assess that as a potential problem. But as far as the tube monitoring network goes on Toynrod and Hill, those tubes are still in the same location. The one which read the highest currently post traffic reversal is more than 10% below the annual limit.
And as someone that lives in the area, I'm delighted to hear that.
Yeah, and obviously that monitoring is ongoing. So, you know, if there are issues, obviously we need to go back to the drawing board, so to speak. And, you know, the data is coming in all the time, and we react as and when the data, you know, if it reveals an issue somewhere in particular, if we anticipate that issue is going to be a longer term issue, then obviously there is something to consider and factor into how we go forward.
Yep, that's great. Thank you very much, Lucy.
Thanks, Councillor.
Anybody else got any questions? Okay, we'll go on to comments. Anybody got any comments? Okay, I've just got a couple. I have. It's just in regards to 5.3, 5.4, 5.5. I'm not going to read them out because there's quite a bit there. But it's, to be honest, it's just it's positive. It shows positive data going in the right direction. So, in my opinion, it does show that the changes that are being made will benefit people's health. Then the other thing that I've got is normally this topic wouldn't be discussed at this committee, but because one was sent right in the very beginning, and then we had another one, I thought just to finish it off, and there's a bit of positivity coming. A lot of positivity coming through. That we just to round it off in this committee. That's why the report was brought to us. I think in future, this topic would be better discussed at Councillor Lee Davis's committee. Unless it's after May 2022, maybe it might be a different chair. I don't know. Anybody else got any comments? No. No. Okay, Lucy, thank you very much for the report and answering the questions as well. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, and the officers that want to go now, they can. They don't have to stay around. I should have said that earlier as well. Okay, we're just going to the next agenda item number 5, and that's the forward work programme, due to be discussed in the on the 1st of November. Will be the local development plan annual monitoring report and children's play areas, playgrounds. I know that second one was briefly discussed in a full council recently, where some money was made available to update for the parks. But I think hopefully this next report will go into more detail, to be honest, on that, because I think there's a lot of parks out there that are being criticised by residents, rightly so. But obviously this is not down to officers, to be honest, because the money hasn't been there. But I think we do need to. It's something we do need to look at. You know, for our kids, and this report, I've asked how much will it cost for the playgrounds to be brought back to their original standard, and things like that. I don't know if anybody would like to come in. No, Clive. Okay.
Yeah, it's not on that subject. On the, obviously, from what we were told by Judith Jones earlier, the nappy recycling report will also be on the 1st of November.
Yes, and I think members and residents look forward to that one. Thank you, Clive, on that.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's. Always remember, gentlemen, and if you have anything to bring to the forward work programme that you'd like discussed, just you can raise it here or send an email. Next agenda item number 6, scrutiny referrals, feedback and follow-up actions. I don't think we have any. 1 second. No, nothing. Agenda item number 7, reflection and evaluation of meeting. Yeah, I think just a normal meeting. I think we're going to do probably our last task and finish group, which will hopefully we can come up with some ideas, to be honest, you know, to lessen the amount of fly tipping throughout the borough. I'm sure this has been looked at right throughout the country, to be honest, but you know, maybe we might be able to come up with something. I don't know if anybody would like to add anything. No, Sean, have I? Councillor Davis, yeah.
Nothing really to add. In terms of the nappy recycling, but they're going to bring a report back to us. I can't remember what was decided. COVID brain, sorry. What did we say? Was we weren't happy with the report. What did they?
Yeah, I think it looks to be that RAP are going to do the report on behalf of the council. That's what I've gotten from it, Lee.
All right, okay. I could tell they were doing a report. I didn't know whether they were going to look into it again. All right, thanks, Jack.
Sean, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I was just about to echo exactly what you just said there. I think Jude said that she was going to have RAP come in because they've got experience with the nappy recycling of other authorities and how well it worked and what were the downsides there. So I think, echoing exactly what you said there, RAP are going to come in and do the report.
Is there a timeline on there? Do we know? Sorry, I think I've read it somewhere, but is there one?
I'm not aware of any timeline at the moment on that.
Okay.
You broke up there. Timeline on what? Sorry.
When the report is going to come back.
Yeah, next. She did say next council, next scrutiny.
Sorry,
November.
my youngest came in and was performing, so I had to turn my camera and sound off. So yeah, yeah. Sorry, apologies.
No problem. Okay, next item agenda number 8. Any other business deemed urgent by the chair? I have none. So I'd just like to thank everybody for taking part and turning up to the meeting, and I formally announce the meeting closed.